Welcome to TOAMagic.com's Auction of the People pre-stream. We're breaking down the 8 decks that will be featured in this exclusive event for the top 8 players in our EE6 leaderboard. These are all decks that have won a Grand Prix in the Legacy format in the past 12 years. That said, let's get to some decks.
And here we have the Flash Hulk Counterbalance strategy, which took down a Grand Prix Columbus in 2007 piloted by Steve Sadin. This is the infamous Flash Hulk strategy, as I'm sure many of you have heard of. So can you walk us through the main game plan of this deck?
Sure. So a month before Grand Prix Columbus, Wizards of the Coast decided to remove power level errata on a number of cards, including Flash. Flash was legal in the format, but used to work similar to Mox Diamond, where you cast it, put a creature in. If you couldn't pay the extra mana for the creature, it would go to the graveyard immediately and never touch the battlefield. Instead, the way the card works, the way the card was written, is that creature goes onto the battlefield, and then you sacrifice it. So you cast Flash for colors of the blue, put in Protein Hulk. You are not going to be able to pay the 3 green to keep your Protein Hulk around, so it goes to the graveyard. If you search your library for any number of creatures with converted mana cost 6 or less, in this case we're going to go ahead and get a Karmic Guide and a Carrion Feeder. Karmic Guide is going to enter the battlefield, return Protein Hulk to play. You're going to go ahead and sacrifice that Protein Hulk to your Carrion Feeder, this time getting Kiki-Jiki Mirror Breaker, and anything you want that's left in the deck is a 1. From here, you can activate Kiki-Jiki, making a copy of Karmic Guide. In response to Kiki-Jiki's ability, we're going to sack the original Kiki-Jiki to Carrion Feeder. Karmic Guide comes in untapped. We return Kiki-Jiki untapped as well. Kiki-Jiki has haste. And then we can repeat this to have a very large Carrion Feeder that is summoning sick, as well as a very large number of copies of Karmic Guide. So that is the deck's game plan. Everyone knew about Flash Hulk coming into this event, that those 2 cards were bonkers together, and the question was really, how do we build the best Flash Hulk deck? So what this deck did, and why this deck was miles ahead of everyone else, is it got to play the full blue protection suite, 4 days, 4 Force of Will, as well as 4 Counterbalance and Sensei's Top, and the backup plan of 4 Dark Confidant. So even if you stop their Flash Hulk going off, they can still play Counterbalance Top and grind you out for a bit and draw cards with Dark Confidant and attack you. Someone had asked me before the show, what happens if your opponent just has a TOAMagic Crypt in play? Between the main deck and the sideboard, this deck has no out for TOAMagic Crypt. It's like, well, you just get 3 Quirion Dryads and say go.
Yeah, that does seem like a powerful sideboard strategy. The 4 Quirion Dryads in the board here. So this deck, the release of Future Sight was happening immediately after the actual Grand Prix, so we don't see any Tarmogoyfs or Pact Negations or other similar aggressive protection spells or alternate threats. But yeah, there are several newer cards at the time for this Flash Hulk deck. But other than what you had mentioned before, what interesting main deck choices do we have here? See the one Massacre, the one Echoing Truth. What are they trying to tag with those?
So you have 4 Mystical Tutors in this format, still somehow, and Mystical Tutor will allow them to find any instant or sorcery, put it on top of their deck so they can draw it the next turn. Echoing Truth kind of is the catch. Also, if there was a TOAMagic Crypt, they would have an out to it just for the turn to be able to get there. Massacre lets you buy a lot of time against any of the aggressive creature strategies in this format as well.
I imagine the Mystical Tutor Counterbalance interaction can be pretty frustrating for some of Satan's opponents throughout the tournament.
I'm sure it could. And there's a 1 Body Snatcher, so if any of your cards ended up in your hand from the combo, you could just grab your Body Snatcher instead of that card in the same spot, discard whatever card that was, sacrifice it to Carrion Feeder, and keep on trucking.
Perfect. Yeah, this deck is why we are not allowed to play with Flash anymore. It's a little too good. You just dead on turn 1 sometimes.
It certainly is.
So other than executing the combo, what would you say the main difficulties are in this strategy?
Remembering how the combo works is a big deal. There are definitely people at this GP who didn't quite know. They're like, oh, I play Flash and put Hulk in, and then my opponent scoops right. This deck doesn't have Gataxian Probe or anything like that to give you the information to know if the coast is clear. So instead of this deck doesn't kind of a should I go for it, should I not go for it sort of play, and we're gonna see that come in a little bit. This deck has no way to really go along with someone in the fair sense of it. So if your opponent leads off on Island Delver of Secrets and they're holding up Spell Pierce, you need to go over that or win before turn 8, because you have almost no way of getting that Delver Secrets off the board.
Sure. Yeah, all I can see is in this sideboard, which looks it's definitely built like an old school sideboard, but it has some powerful cards going on with 4 Kyrian Dryad, 4 Leyline of the Void, 3 Swords to Plowshares, 3 Massacres, and a Reverend Silence. So how do you feel about the strength of the sideboard in this new format?
The sideboard is a huge glaring weakness for this sideboard. You're gonna see a lot of these other decks be able to establish a strategy early on and sit on a card like Spell Pierce or Daze, Force of Will, those sorts of cards. And the Flash Hulk deck is going to have to push through, but not really have the room to maneuver as well as it did at the time.
Sure.
So I think any of these strategies that are aggressive can go be very aggressive. I think a deck like Lands is going to be fairly well off against the Flash Hulk strategy in a way that doesn't seem intuitive, just because its mana denial elements and very fast clock are not going to allow Flash Hulk to really get going, especially if you just have a single port.
Yeah, or a Glacial Chasm. This deck cannot interact with Glacial Chasm either.
That is entirely correct. You can set up Counterbalance lock. There's a way around it. There are some tricks you can kind of do here, but there's no I'm going to play Ashen Rider and kill you. There's a couple other cards that a deck like this could play depending on what exactly they're trying to do. This deck can play Bile Urchin and play the Body Double combo. I think, although that may be relying on Reveler. Reveler's not in this format.
Correct. Yeah, this was right before the release of Future Sight.
One of the other kills this deck could have had was for Disciple of the Vault, 4x mana artifacts and an Arcbound Ravager, just make them lose 20 life. But this is the most space efficient kill, which is why it was chosen. And the trade-off of
a Counterbalance Divining Top,
Right.
Cormox, all that. So this deck obviously is very powerful, trying to kill people on turn 1. How much life and cards do you see being auctioned to get the privilege of playing the Flash Hulk strategy?
I think this is the one deck that's going to break the 4-card mark. I'd have to sit down and figure out what sort of 4-card hands are keepable and not keepable, but I have a feeling like almost any 4 cards you can kind of keep. You do have the awkward problem of the Chrome Moxes in the deck. The mana base is a little shaky with 3 islands and 1 swamp, and I might not be able to cast the other card I want to cast here. But I think we're going to see 4 cards and a medium life to like 12, 13, 14, somewhere in that range. Because it will need that extra turn, that extra card at some point to be able to combo off.
And yeah, there we have it with the Flash Hulk strategy with Counterbalance Divining Top, everyone's favorite. And yeah, hopefully we'll get to see some fireworks with this deck.